Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is Adam Enbar from HubSpot. I have Chris Anderson on the line from EmpowerKit.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. We really look forward to covering some material that'll hopefully help you at the corporate level and also at the franchisee level for inbound marketing in the franchise space.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, we're really excited for this webinar. Chris and I have together been speaking to a lot of franchise systems, a lot of franchise consultants, franchisors, franchisees, finding out a lot about some of the unique challenges that franchises face, specifically with the kind of tension between having a great online presence and specifically at the local level, but maintaining some of that brand control and brand integrity that you want to keep as a franchise. So we have some great information for you today on the agenda. We're going to start out just talking about the sales and marketing playbook, what's going on today generally in the world of marketing and how that's changing. And then we're going to get into some really specific tactics, starting out with how to get found online, both as a franchisor, whether you're looking to attract more franchisees or to generate leads for your franchisees, and then also at the local level, how to generate more traffic to your website or individual franchisees, how you can set that up. We're going to go right into conversion and talk about some tactics you can get to get more people that are on your website to convert from visitors into leads. And then finally, we're going to talk about nurturing and customer loyalty. It's a huge, huge opportunity in the franchise world for franchisees to get more specifically repeat business and engage our existing audience better that we found almost nobody is doing very effectively today. So with that, that's really the agenda for today, and we'll probably have some time at the end for Q&A, and we will make the recording available on the same landing page by the end of the day today, and we'll email it out to everyone on the webinar. So with that, let's get started. So before we jump into the whole concept of inbound marketing versus that, and how you kind of leverage all of this stuff, we really have to understand just marketing in general and how it's changing. Everything you see here on the screen is a traditional way of doing marketing, whether it's going door to door, newspaper ads, cold calling, direct mail, all traditional ways of getting business. And we really believe that this kind of playbook is broken. People are finding better and better ways of blocking out these marketing efforts because fundamentally they're all just interruptions. And so we have caller ID to block out cold calls. We have TiVo to block out TV commercials, spam protection on email, all these great ways to block out advertising. And the reason for that is that fundamentally people are changing. This is the way people used to learn about products and services through these outbound techniques. So you really had to rely on a TV ad or a newspaper ad or speak to a salesperson even to find out anything about a product or service. And today, cold calls and direct mail, to be honest, are just practically gone. They don't work. Nobody holds on to coupons. Nobody likes cold calls. Newspapers, TVs still have some impact. But people are also really using a whole slew of new media avenues to find out about products and services, to do research about the things that they want. And as marketers, we have to figure out how to engage these people in these new mediums. And that's really what inbound marketing is all about. The idea behind inbound marketing is creating thought leadership and getting your expertise out there, whether it's through search engines or social media, through the blogosphere, to get found by more qualified prospects when they're looking for you and convert those visitors into leads and customers. And the nice thing about inbound marketing is, the fundamental distinction is that while outbound marketing or traditional marketing is all about interruption and push, inbound marketing is all about pull. It's all about how you get people who are already online looking for your products and services, doing research to find you rather than your competitors. Now, I know for the franchisors on the call, this can be a really, really difficult concept to wrestle with because there is that tension between how much do we let individual franchisees have this local presence versus not participating and potentially losing out on this huge opportunity. And we're going to go into some detail about that. But one of the most compelling reasons why you really want to leverage it is that aside from the obvious benefits, that inbound marketing comes down to brains versus budget, where traditional marketing, traditional advertising is totally reliant on how much money you're going to spend, how big your wallet is, and how much you can afford to buy commercials and buy direct mail campaigns and do cold calls. Inbound marketing is not about the size of your wallet, it's about the size of your brain. It's about your ability to create thought leadership in your local market and to build relationships in your local community. And that's really great, especially for small business franchisees that are trying to grow, trying to get off the ground, and attract the right type of customers. And on that same note, for franchise systems that are growing and looking to attract new potential franchisees, it's really a great cost-effective way to do it. But you have to structure it correctly, and you have to make sure that you maintain your brand integrity, and you don't have your franchisees kind of going out and doing their own thing. And so with that,
right.
we're going to jump into some specific tactics on how you can actually do that, how you can begin by attracting qualified prospects to your website, both on the franchisee or franchisor side of things.
Right, and a lot of what we're going to cover today is going to be around the local aspects, so local inbound marketing and lead generation at the franchisee level, because that's definitely a big challenge today. Obviously, you're going to grow your franchise system if your franchisees are successful. That hinges a lot of your success of signing on new franchisees because they're looking to your existing system and seeing how well it's doing. But a lot of the content that we're going to talk about is also directly applicable to franchise sales. So it really kind of covers both areas in terms of helping you increase your qualified leads that are interested in your franchise opportunity. But in either case, the first step is really getting found. How do you get more visibility so your target audience can really easily find you when they're looking for your products and services? So here's an interesting slide, billboard right out in the middle of the desert, which is actually what most business websites are like today. They have a site, no one's really coming to it, it's out in the desert. So when businesses decide they want to really start generating leads, they get turned on to this idea of attracting customers through inbound marketing. Usually the first thought is, okay, I need to get a new website. I need to drop a few $1,000s, do a redesign, and really clean up my image for my site. But what a lot of people miss is that that's really just going to give you a nicer, prettier billboard that's still out in the desert. So what we want to really focus on is how do we move your website from out in the wasteland in the desert where no one's really finding it or coming to it into Times Square? How do we get a lot of people coming to it, assuming you have interested customers and prospects out there? How do we make it so you come up high on the radar when they're looking for you? So that's what we're going to tackle today mainly. And when we look at franchise consumer marketing and lead generation at the local level, local SEO really plays a huge role in driving traffic to the individual location websites and landing pages. It's really, really important for franchisors not only to focus on optimizing their corporate site, which a lot of folks probably on the call are doing on a day-to-day basis, but to also help drive traffic to the local websites for each franchisee. We're going to cover that in more detail, but it's really, really important now to get into that. And it's worth noting that basic listings pages, which a lot of franchises, a few years ago, that was pretty common. They're not really effective at gaining any rankings in local search. You really have to have a site or at least a good landing page for each location. So it's worth noting here that we first get into how how Google search rankings work and how the engines work. For anyone on the call that's not familiar, Google really breaks into two sections. You have your organic free results, and then you have your paid ads. So everything at the top and on the right is usually your paid ads, and then everything below is your organic results. And we're going to mainly focus on the organic results today because that's where 91% of the clicks are happening. Most people trust the organic results, and they're really going towards those a lot more than clicking ads. So we're going to really hone in on how can we come up higher on those organic search results. So this screenshot here is the 7-pack that Google launched back in 2004. Just a little bit of history to bring everyone up to speed. This caused a lot of concern because so many businesses out there were really focusing a lot on their SEO, coming up higher in the rankings, and then all of a sudden the 7-pack came out, and this really pushed the organic results down. As you see here, the places showed up first. So, and it's also worth noting here that, you know, if you type something like dealership, Google is actually looking at your IP address, they know your location, and they're serving up those local results to where you're located. As you can see in the screenshot, you know, this person's there in Cambridge, and they're showing the results that are local to you. So they don't always have to append their whatever they're putting in their search with a location. It does it for them.
And Chris, this really speaks to the value of having a local site, because if you don't have some local sites or local pages for your franchisees, there's really no way to show up in these local results anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah, you need to have some kind of presence, and that's, you know, I've talked to a lot of franchisors. A lot of folks are getting on board with that, but there's still many, many franchises out there that are struggling with how to implement that. And we're going to talk about some ways to do that with good tools that are out there. So in 2010, that, you know, we just talked about the 7-pack. In 2010, Google introduced the 0-pack, and what this did was basically combine local results with organic results. So as you can see here in the screenshot, it's kind of blending the places results in with the organic results. And it really emphasized the importance to have both covered. So not only to have a really good Google Places listing, but also have your organic listing showing up there, because obviously the end goal is to, when someone is searching for you, to show up higher, whether they're searching, you know, for something that relates to corporate, or they're looking for a product and service where they're going to find a local franchisee. You want to come up higher. So the businesses that are doing best are really tackling both, having optimized places, listings, and also having their organic results. So when it comes to your places and your listings, we'll talk about that first. There's a couple of main things. The first one is consistency. And what this means is that basically in conventional SEO, there's a high premium put on having the proper keywords in place for your listing. Google Places does this by, they give you plenty of opportunity to tell your visitors through your listing which search terms that you're really targeting for your business, what's most applicable to what customers will be searching for you by. So there's a lot of opportunity to put that. And it's important to ensure that all of your business information is really consistent, not only on your Google Places in terms of your address, phone number, URL, all the contact information for your locations, but it's also consistent on the actual website and any citation sites. And we'll cover that in a second. But basically, citation sites are other sites that have listings like Yelp, like Google Local, like all the, there's dozens of other search engines, business directories, and even social media directories now. You really, really want to have consistency across all of those because Google needs to basically be able to trust that the data that you have for your listings, if you have a location in Boston, that's the correct information. So it's really important for your franchisees to have that consistency across as many of these citation sites as possible, but also on their Google Places, and have that match up with their website because that helps Google trust that the information is correct, and definitely helps you come up a little bit higher. And also,
and that's the key here as far as consistency goes, Chris, right? We see too many franchisees that either only have one Google Places or one Google account, as opposed to letting every single individual franchisee have their own Google Places account. But more importantly, that Google Places account needs to be consistent with some sort of web presence. So just because all your franchisees have an account with Google Places and they've registered, doesn't mean they're going to get much traffic unless that's consistent with another, local website or a local presence online. So they really need both of those things. And, the local franchisee, the franchisee in Boston needs to have a Google Places account for Boston. He needs to have a local website optimized around Boston, and he needs to have the same, Boston local phone numbers on both of those areas to really reinforce that with Google.
Absolutely. And when you have location-specific information in those listings, like zip codes, the cities you serve, that's really going to also help those locations to show up not only in local results, but also when people are searching without the local identifier there, to come up in those non-local searches too. So which goes directly into completion. You really want to have fully complete listings with all of your information. It's all free. There's places to put photos, videos, coupons. You really want to take advantage of all of that because that, again, Google and some of the other directories that are cross-referencing, the more complete it is, the better you're going to do. So you really want to take advantage of that as much as possible because at the end of the day, Google is looking to serve the end customer out there, and it makes sense to have a complete listing because you're going to have more relevant, more complete information than an incomplete one. So completion is really key. And then lastly, again, is citations. You really want to push to have those listings in other sites as well, not just Google Places. And this screenshot here shows a couple of different ones. We have the Google Places shot, we have Yelp, we have Yahoo Local. So for the larger franchises, this can be a little bit daunting. Let's say you have a couple hundred locations. Gosh, how are we going to get our listings to all of these, for all of our locations, to all these directories? There are tools out there, and we can cover that in a follow-up. If anyone's interested, I'd be happy to discuss that further. But there are tools to kind of streamline that, to get all of your location listing information that's fully complete, distributed to all these different places, which is going to help you a lot. And just a tip in terms of getting these citation listings, once you have them distributed, it's really, you want to think about ways that you can build into your systems, ways that you can encourage customers to start posting reviews. It's really helpful to have those types of reviews in your listings. Helps build trust, and it's also, really helps it complete your listing a little bit more if you can have people reviewing on your Google Places page, obviously Yelp and some of these other places. So if you can work that into the day-to-day flow of what your franchisees are already doing, to say, hey, if you liked our service, please review us here, whether that's on a purchase order or different materials that get distributed to customers, that's a good way that you can help start getting more reviews. So aside from the business listings, taking this a step further, the next step is really to do two things. First, we need to get on the list of results. That's obviously step one. We've got to have local websites, as we talked about before, in place for each franchise location so they have that presence. And then we need to tell Google what searches we want to show up for. So it says here in the screenshot, have about 760,000 results. We have to get on that list of results for those keywords. So in this example, we have damage restoration. We have to get on that list first. The next thing we have to do is really get to the top of the list. 760,000, that's a lot of results, a lot of pages. As we all know, you're not going to do too well if you're not on that first page. You want to really see results from this, you have to be coming up on the first page. And what's worse is if you're not coming up on the first page, obviously that business is going to your competitors. So people that are searching for damage restoration, if you're not showing up, they're going to whoever else is there, some of your competitors. So with that, here's a quick example. It's actually not too difficult to tackle the first thing, showing up on the list. We have pulled up here one of Paul Davis's local sites, and this particular location is targeting the term contents restoration and cleaning. So that's what they want to show up for when people are searching, and a couple variations of that term. So in order to do that, they have to tell Google a few things. They have to tell them that contents restoration is what they want to show up for, and they do that by putting that particular keyword phrase in a few of these key places that we have highlighted. So the page title there at the top, the URL, you can see that says contents restoration, the header, and then also in the actual content of the page. So you really just need to take that particular keyword or search phrase and work it into these places, and that's how you show up on the list. It's actually pretty straightforward. So this whole page
also localize this page, which is really smart, so that if somebody's just searching for content restoration and they're located in Camden County, like you said before, Chris, Google match it up, and rather than compete with everybody in the country that's trying to be on the first page of Google for content restoration, this website is really only competing with the people in Camden County, which gives them a real leg up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely want to make it localized as much as possible. And then it's also important to note that you basically have an opportunity for every page to rank for a different keyword or phrase. So the more pages on your website, that just means the more opportunities to rank for those different terms, because as we all know, customers are going to be searching for different terms. They're not just going to search for commercial cleaning or just for contents restoration. Most businesses have a number of different keywords that people are going to be looking for when they're interested in whatever your franchise offers. So as you can see here, we have a few different pages pulled up from this particular site, and these Paul Davis is targeting terms like water damage cleanup, fire and smoke damage, and as we said, contents restoration. So you really want to take advantage of that as much as possible for these local sites, because as we said, each page represents a new opportunity to really target those different phrases people are looking for.
And this is a perfect example of why local is so important. I mean, you can think of a franchise like Paul Davis where they're doing restoration. Well, a franchisee targeting customers in Texas is probably doing very different restoration jobs than somebody targeting franchisees in Minnesota, right? It's going to be, people in Texas probably don't get too much snow damage. But that franchisee in Minnesota probably wants some pages optimized around that. So giving them a little bit of flexibility to understand their local audience and target the right keywords accordingly is really only something you can do through the individual franchisees who know their local markets, as opposed to one big corporate domain that doesn't have any kind of flexibility to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Different locations are going to have different things oftentimes. You can talk about landscaping. That's going to be different in different regions of the U.S. There's a lot of different examples of that, but you definitely want to make sure that you're targeting the right things depending on where the franchise location is. So we've been talking a lot about local sites. I just wanted to pause for a second. I know this is something that a lot of franchisors that we talk to and that we're listening to really have some concerns about that, obviously, from a brand compliance standpoint. You want to make sure that with those local sites, however they're structured, whether they're attached to the corporate domain or they're standalone sites, you really want to have some sort of management system that has that balance where you can have brand compliance and top-level controls to really limit what franchisees can and can't change on their sites. That's obviously a concern for most franchisors. You can't completely open it up because you need to have certain levels of continuity, of course, and compliance to make sure the branding is maintained. And then also have a really, really easy way that franchisees can make some of those updates so that it's extremely simple. We all know that franchisees typically get intimidated by something that's a little bit more difficult to do or has a technical hurdle. So you really, really want to make sure that whatever they are able to update on their sites, that the system they're using for that is extremely easy, or else you're not going to have too much participation from franchisees. So, our tool, EmpowerKit, we really focus a lot on that. We've built our system specifically for that. We'll cover that a little bit towards the end, but I just wanted to note here that you do need to have the right system in place to manage that, or else it can be a little bit tricky.
And there are a lot of best practices around this. For example, we see a lot of franchise systems that'll, maybe they'll allow them to edit some of the local pages, the customer testimonials page, things like, announcements, news, maybe it's a small blog, but they'll keep the pricing page locked or the about us page locked and not let them change that. Of course, it's different on a case-by-case basis.
Absolutely. Yep. So just to kind of recap, here are a couple of really good 4 rules for local SEO. Again, we've already talked about this, but having those local sites for locations, there's a few different ways to structure that, but you really want to make sure you have that in place. You want to make sure the page titles and the metadata are really optimized. So using the right keywords, doing some research to see what your customers are actually searching for. That's really, really important. Keeping it short is pretty key too. General rule of thumb is under 71 characters. And then you want to make each page title unique. So you want to talk about what's relevant to that particular page. Just like we talked about before, each page is a different opportunity to really target a specific search phrase or keyword. Third, optimize locally relevant content. You really want to make sure whatever that content is on those pages and those sites are really relevant and compelling to that local audience there. So if, we talked about a couple of examples, if you're down south, you might have different landscaping services, or there might be some variations to the conditions than if you're in Canada. So you really want to optimize and make sure the content is locally relevant. And then lastly, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I see a lot of educational type of franchises, like maybe music schools or tutoring companies or things like that. And there's not too much of a difference by geography, but there's a huge difference by demographic. So if you are in an area where you're serving people with a lot of public schools, kids that are in public schools, you might be talking about different things and using different marketing materials than if you're in an area where there are a lot of private schools. Or if it's, religious schools versus secular schools. And so really just knowing your target audience and optimizing around that, whether it's the geography or the demographics or the income range that you're serving, whatever it is. Again, that's why it's just so important to let the franchisees participate there because they really know the audience better than anyone else.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to really leverage the franchise model and the franchisees. They're right there on the ground level. They know the communities they work in. They know the demographics. Sometimes they're not as sophisticated on certain things, but they really do have their hand on the pulse of that local community. So you can really leverage that to make it more effective. And then lastly, just want to note that regular content publishing is really key. It's no longer really that effective to have a standalone site and check it off your list and be done with it. You really have to have some regular updates on an ongoing basis. So whether that's new customer testimonials or, we're going to get into blogging here, but you really want to have some kind of regular updates or else your site's going to become a little bit stagnant and you're going to start to see a drop. So the next thing is really, okay, we talked about getting on the list. How do we get to the top of the list in search results? So the way that Google figures out how to rank different sites, they really rely a lot on the inbound links. So how many websites out there are linking to your website? What that means is that those other websites, they think something is really special about your site because they're going to send traffic away from their site to you, which means you have very valuable content. Google, at the end of the day, is looking for really relevant, valuable content to the end customer, so they see these inbound links coming from other sites to your site as a really good indicator that you have that great content. So that helps a lot to bump you up the list. So that's a really, really key thing to do and a great reason to have that great, compelling content so that sites will start linking to you. They kind of see it as votes. And what's interesting is that as of recently, they're not only looking at the inbound links from other websites, but they're also looking at the social media atmosphere to see how many shares you're getting on Facebook. Are you getting tweets? The more social media activity is pretty much equivalent to those inbound links because that also helps fuel the trust and knowing that your site has that good, compelling content. So it's kind of a blend now of inbound links from other sites, but then also a lot of social media shares. So you really want to focus on that as well.
And this is pretty remarkable because people constantly say to us, well, I don't need to use Twitter for my brand, or I don't need to use Facebook. My customer base is not on social media, which, I would probably argue that that's not necessarily true. But even if you don't believe your customers are on social media, Google is saying that your success in social media is going to impact where you show up on Google, right? So you not participating in social media is really going to hurt your ability to show up in Google. And it really does make sense. Google's trying to bring up the most relevant website, and it stands to reason that a website that people are sharing on Facebook and talking about on Twitter is more relevant to somebody doing a search than a website that nobody's talking about. And that's really their logic behind it. And we'll talk about some strategies both on the franchisor and franchisee side about how to leverage social media, within that kind of brand compliance while maintaining that. But, of course, Chris did a great job recapping how search engines work, how do you get to the top of the list how do you get on the list, rather, by putting the right keywords into the right places and by integrating with local SEO. And then how do you get to the top of the list or to the first page by generating inbound links, by generating social media shares. Of course, the question now is, well, that's all great information, but how the hell do I actually accomplish that? How do I actually get pages on my site with the right keywords? How do I get my franchisees to optimize? And why is anybody going to, share my site in social media? If I'm a landscaper or a construction guy or an education franchise or whatever it is, why are people going to talk about me? And the answer, surprising to a lot of people, is actually a blog. A blog is the single best way to attract qualified reasons for that. First of all, every time you publish an article, it adds a new page to your website. So this is a huge deal. You can see, for example, I did a search for negotiating a great price with an auto dealership. The first result is not somebody's website. It's a blog article that someone wrote. Right? Because people generally don't start their search online. They searching for a product. They start out by doing research. So, for example, if it's flood damage, I'm going to search about what to do about flood damage before I'm going to call the actual contractor. And so blogging is a great way to start adding pages around those helpful pieces of information. And since each page is a new opportunity to rank for new keywords, a blog has a really tremendous impact, and it ends up being that they generate 7 times the amount of traffic than other websites.
Yeah, and it's really...
websites without blogs.
Yeah, and it really comes down to providing useful, valuable information to what customers are looking for. Like Adam said, usually the first thing that a customer has when they're going to ultimately purchase from you, it's not, hey, I want to buy a product or service. It's, hey, I want to solve the problem that I have right at hand. So let's say, you have a spill on your carpet, you have a dinner party, there's a wine spill. You're not thinking, hey, I need to find a commercial carpet cleaning service. You're thinking, how the hell do I clean up this wine spill? So that's a good example. If you're a carpet cleaning franchise, you could have a blog post of, top 3 tips for cleaning up a spill or something like that. So it's solving that problem, but that's a good entry point for that customer to find you, learn more, and then when they're ready, then they can click that call to action. We'll get into that a little bit more of how that conversion can happen. But yeah, you really want to come up on the blog is a great way to start showing up on the radar initially.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we'll talk about that funnel and how it impacts, what the franchisor should do relative to the franchisee. But what's important here is that it's not just about getting traffic to your site. So yeah, websites with a blog get 7x the amount of traffic. More importantly, websites with a blog get anywhere from 67 to 88% more leads than websites without a blog. So this is, now we're talking about real return on investment. If something is proven to generate more leads for you, that's something you really should be paying attention to, especially at the local level. Because, as a franchisor, whether your goal is to grow the individual locations or to attract more franchisees, it all comes down to how successful your franchisees are going to be at generating more business. And this is pretty significant. And what's great is, again, it's free. It comes down to brains versus budget.
Absolutely. So, a big question that I always get when talking to a franchisor is, do we want to let franchisees blog? Is this, obviously a lot of concerns come to mind. The 2 top concerns that we usually hear about franchisees blogging are franchisees are unlikely to take the time to blog. They're too busy. They're just not going to make time for it. And, the second one is a fear of compliance issues, a lack of brand and message consistency. What are our franchisees going to blog about? We're not sure that we want to, hand that over to them so that they're going to be able to potentially put something out there that's going to be, create some red flags for us. So those are usually the top concerns. But with that, it is definitely a good idea to have franchisees blogging, but there's definitely some caveats to that. At the franchisor level, you really want to have a good content strategy. So not just say, okay, here's a blog, go nuts. You want to think about strategically what types of content is going to be realistic that your franchisees can come up with, and B, is going to be compelling to the end customers. So you want to have that strategy at the corporate level to give some guidance to the franchisees so it's not completely open. Again, we talked about things that are easy like testimonials, case studies, things like that. You want to look at what can be gathered without too much effort just in the day-to-day workflow. And then you also want to it's a good idea to provide some templates, some examples, and some ongoing tips and training. So again, not just leaving it as an open forum where they can post whatever, but really have more structure to it. So at corporate, you could be maybe producing a blog post every couple weeks and then having some examples and some ways that franchisees can take that content or those ideas and then modify them and make them more relevant at the local level and make some customizations. And then lastly, of course, you want to have a policy in line. Compliance is always a big issue in franchising, so you do want to have some basic guidelines and some policies. And then also some monitoring tools. there's obviously things like Google Alerts, but there's also some more advanced tools where you can really monitor what's being published on a day-to-day basis. So if you need to, you can go in there and make some changes. But we usually recommend having good monitoring tools, having good policies, and some of the other things we mentioned over completely preventing it, just because there's so much benefit that can be gained from having that local voice through a blog.
Yeah, and Chris, you brought up a great example of some of the things that work best for franchises. I mean, of course, just simple articles. So, for example, if you are a landscaping franchise, maybe you could tell your franchisees they should all write a blog article about 3 tips for growing XYZ in your city. And so that's a pretty clear thing that a franchisee could just write a quick article about, something really short. But what tends to perform really exceptionally well are case studies. What you see up here is a couple of screenshots from HubSpot's own website of some of our own customer case studies. One of them is a music school, another one's a bed and breakfast, and then another is a closet design company. And basically what we've done is we took a flip cam, a little video camera, and mailed it to a few of our happy customers with a list of questions, and they just recorded themselves answering the question, and we posted them on our website. Simple enough, didn't take more than 10 minutes for us to put it together, but this is really powerful and something that's really easy for the franchisees to do. And the reason it's powerful is because it accomplishes a few things. First of all, especially for service-based franchises out there, like cleaning, like education, like landscaping, this really allows you to build a better long-term relationship with your customer rather than just, asking for an order or asking for business every time, right? You're doing something else with them. You're doing something neat. You're showing them that you appreciate them and that you value them as a customer, that they're one of your best customers. And it really helps you get repeat business. And most franchises forget about that, but, it tends to be easier to, increase your bottom line by getting more repeat business than by going out and trying to find new business. And this is generally one of the biggest opportunities. The second thing it does is it's a great sales tool. So, for example, we have a great case study about a music school. And so anytime a new music school wants to buy HubSpot, we send them this case study. And, of course, they see how successful this guy was, and they sign up. So it's a really great sales tool, and franchises could do it the same way. Even if you're a house cleaning franchise, you could take, with the permission of your customer, you could take a little picture. Maybe they're a new married couple, and it's their first house that they bought, and you could tell a little story on the website and show how you're really part of the local community. It's a really, really great way to use it as almost like a customer reference and use it as a sales tool to show how great your services are. And lastly, it's an instant source of referrals. These are small businesses, small business owners, and the first thing they did when they got appeared on the HubSpot blog and they were shown as case studies with the videos themselves is they emailed pretty much everyone they knew and said, check me out, right? And all of a sudden every time we publish one of these case studies, we get a nice little flow of leads in because these people are spreading the word to their network as they should. They were really happy with us. And that will happen for franchisees as well. If a franchisee makes a little video of one of their customers, posts it as a case study, puts it on the website, and then shows that customer, the first thing that customer is going to do is put it on his Facebook page, then email it out to his friends, and again, it's a really nice instant bump in referral business.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting how HubSpot has done this because they've actually built a process into every customer that they have. They have a process for sending that flip cam. For the people to do the video on their own, send it back, and then publish it. So they've kind of systemized that whole process of publishing. It's not really a new way of doing it every single time. And I think that's really noteworthy in franchising because as with anything, you want to create systems, you want to have it repeatable, you want to have it scalable. So maybe it's not a video in certain franchises, but if you can work that into a process that that they can do at every job when the opportunity strikes, and they have the tools to either get a written testimonial or an audio testimonial or something there, and you can work that in as a process, then that's just a better way to increase the content that you can gather. And like Adam said, there's a ton of benefits from that, from getting those good case studies and testimonials.
So just a few tips on blog content. Again, one, you really want to be a resource to your target audience. You shouldn't be creating content around we're having a sale, but tips and tricks, how-tos tend to do really well. Answer frequently asked questions. And again, this of course applies to franchisees. Franchisees are constantly getting questions from their prospective customers. Tends to be that the answers to those questions make for great blog articles, because if people are looking for the answers to those questions or asking for the answers to those questions in person, there are also people looking for the answers to those questions online. You really, really want to engage in your local community. This, more than anything, is, I think, the biggest value of franchise systems, because you can figure out how to scale at the national level, but also how to leverage your franchisees to become part of their local community. They can even be publishing local events on their blog, like this new business opened, or this this community fair is going on. Their blog, their site can become a resource to the local community, and it makes a huge impact. How-to-based content works really, really well. Of course, similar to what Chris said a few minutes ago, you have to post consistently. It's kind of like going to the gym. You don't have to do it every day, but the more you do it, the more benefit you're going to get out of it. And then finally, of course, you really want to give your franchisees some guidelines and examples around best practices and what they should do, what type of information to publish and what type of information to not publish. It's funny, you see that franchisors typically do a great job of vetting franchisees and picking the right people to allow to buy a franchise in the first place, and making sure they have full confidence in these people. And then for some reason, when it comes to social media and blogging, they all of a sudden lose all of that trust. And you just have to remember why you chose that person to be a franchisee, how that relationship developed. You trusted them, then you can continue to trust them. Just give them the right guidelines, give them the right examples, and they will do a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so far we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about how do we come up in search results. We've covered blogging, but a lot of, every conference I go to, a lot of meetings I'm in, the question always comes up, how do we handle social media? It's a big, kind of hairy problem. There's a ton of social networks out there, and it's pretty complicated. So we want to just talk a little bit about how social media kind of fits into all of this. And the first thing that's really important is directly related to your content is distribution. So how do you take that content, leverage social media, and really get it out there to more people? So if you notice in the next slide, we actually have a screenshot pulled up. This is Computer Explorers. Some of you guys might know Deb Evans. She's very active in the franchise community, has a radio show on Blog Talk Radio, and they do a good job, through this example here of taking their content on their blog, leveraging social media to get more distribution out of it. So that's the first thing that is really important with social media, is taking the existing content that you have and getting more mileage out of it, essentially. And it's as simple as having in your blog or wherever you have content, having these basic sharing options. We've seen them on tons of websites, but unfortunately a lot of franchises, both at the corporate side and local level, are missing out on this opportunity. So you really want to make it super, super easy for the people that are reading your site to do a quick click, share it to their Facebook, to Google Plus, to LinkedIn, to Twitter. These are the ones where most people are on. So you really want to make that super, super easy and accessible for people to click and share it, because that's going to dramatically increase the audience that content gets exposed to. So that's the first one, is really getting it out there through social.
This is different than just a follow me button. So you can see up at the top they have, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. And that's great for people that want to follow you, but still distinct from giving people the ability to just spread your content and share it.
Right, and it doesn't cost anything. It's not like you're paying for an ad every time someone clicks. It's a free resource, so you might as well take advantage of it. And it's really, really easy to implement on both, again, the corporate site and the local sites. Just to cover kind of the difference between what the franchisor should be focusing on, what franchisees should be focusing on. At the franchisor level, you really have a national scope generally, depending on how large your franchise system is. But you're focusing on things like brand building, thought leadership. You want to stand out over competitors in your industry. But then you also usually have a couple of other focuses. You want to have some kind of focus on franchise sales. So if a prospective franchisee is doing research and they find your Facebook page, you want to have a good way for them to learn more and to get into your actual funnel for franchise sales. You want to engage with franchisees, so you probably want to connect with all of them and leverage your Facebook, or if you're using other platforms, to stay in connection with them and to really build those relationships. And then lastly, you want to be an access point to all your franchise locations. You don't just want to say, here's our corporate page, but you want to say, hey, if you're looking for a location, here's how you can find them. So it's a really good focus for the franchisor. And I pulled up this example of Brightstar because I think they're doing a lot of really great things on their corporate Facebook page, and they definitely have a system in place for their local Facebook pages as well. As you can see there, in the when you first come there, you have to like the page in order to get more information. So that's a great way to convert on Facebook to get that like. You have a locations button there, which you can easily find. It actually, the screenshot on the right, as soon as you click that, it knows your general location and it pulls up the nearest franchisee. So it gives you direct access to their Facebook page, to email them, their contact information, and to visit their website. And they also have a lot of great content. So I think Brightstar is a good example of a franchise that's doing a lot of good things in their Facebook presence. And then, at the franchisee level, you really want to focus on the locally relevant content. Goes right back to the content that you're producing for a site. You want to have the same thing coming through on your Facebook page for the locations. And obviously they want to generate leads, so you want to have some kind of lead generation mechanism. And it's, social media really, more than anything, presents a great opportunity to build those relationships with customers. So like Adam mentioned, instead of just contacting them every time they're due for a new service or what have you, you want to stay in touch with them more regularly. Give them a reason to come back to you. You can really build on that customer loyalty and build those referrals through social media. So it's a really great avenue to do that. And then, here are a couple of key rules for social media. When looking at the local level, you really, again, always comes back to the strategy, guidelines, and policy. You can't really emphasize that enough. It's usually not going to do too well if you just say, okay, we're allowing social media now, let's see how it works out. No, you really, at the corporate level, want to lead by example. You want to work on that strategy, whether that's in-house or working with a specialized consultant. There's a lot of folks that specialize in social media just in franchising that have lots of great knowledge. So you really want to nail down that strategy, and it's something that's usually going to evolve. You're not going to just write it today and it's going to be done with. Social media is always changing. Trends are emerging and evolving as time passes. So you really want to keep a close eye on that and stay in touch with your franchisees on best practices and new tips and guidelines for them. You want to focus on the right networks. A lot of people with social media get a little bit overwhelmed and think they need to be on every social media site. Not really the case. You want to identify where your customers are active. So, at the corporate level, you want to see where are our prospective franchisees active and where are our current franchisees active, and also customers, of course. And then at the local level, obviously, they want to look at, where are our potential and current customers really active. Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it LinkedIn? Facebook's obviously the biggest one, but in some cases there might be some really niche networks that you should be active on, or blog sites that they should be commenting on. So you really want to align the strategy with the right networks. And then content is really the biggest thing. You want to make sure that the content you're producing is directly fueling your social media. And then, like we talked about, loyalty and referrals. So here we have content is king. It's important to note that, we've talked about a lot of things, but it really boils down to really, really good, compelling content. That's what's going to help you in SEO. That's what's going to help you in social media. That's what's going to help you in blogging. So if you can have a really great content strategy, that's going to take you a long way, both at the corporate level and locally for franchisees. The success today on the web in terms of inbound marketing really relies a lot on your ability to create that great, compelling content that people are going to find interesting and share.
Yep, and that's really back to that distinction of brain versus budget. If you can be smart enough to create great content, you're going to win. So we have about 10 minutes left here. We're going to run through a little bit on conversion and nurturing, and then hopefully have some time for questions at the end.
Yeah, so we've talked about, up until now, we've talked mainly about how to get traffic, which is all well and good, but at the end of the day, that doesn't really pay the bills. We have to convert people. So when they come to the site, we have to make sure that they're performing an action, we capture that lead, and we can follow up on it. this is a funny slide here. Most people probably on the call, you have a contact us page. It's the most common page on the internet. And the unfortunate thing is it's the worst performing call to action, surprisingly. But the reason is because you're not giving customers a good reason to put their information in. Simply saying, hey, contact us, there's no real incentive for them to put in their personal information. You want to make it more compelling. You want to have something that they're going to get out of it. So really, really important. And when you're looking at calls to action, that's really the most important thing in conversions. You want to think about this in terms of your funnel. So your website should perform as a funnel. So at the very bottom of the funnel, that's where you have people that are ready to buy. They've come to your site, they're ready for a consultation, they're ready to schedule an appointment, whatever it is that's a sales ready conversion, that's your bottom of the funnel. And you want to make sure you have a good, compelling call to action that's going to grab their attention for those folks that are completely ready to buy. The next one up is your middle of the funnel folks that are getting there, but they're not quite there. So it's another, it's a little bit lighter. It's not quite as salesy. It's free consultation, ask an expert, find out more, might be a demo, things like that. And then the really, really important thing that a lot of people miss is the top of the funnel. And this is where the majority of people who come to your site are going to fall into. That's where they're just researching. They're just looking around. They're trying to find more information. You want to make sure you don't neglect those folks, and you want to give them some good content that they can download. So that might be a white paper. That could be top tips for landscaping your yard. Top things you want to do for your third grader, for in terms of a tutoring franchise, all kinds of things. You want to have a good way that you can capture those leads where people are just in the research phase. So 4 quick rules for CTAs. Again, calls to action. You don't want to neglect that 96%. That's most people, again, are just at that early research stage. You want to have at least 2 CTAs per page to, again, account for the different types of customers that are coming, so you can funnel them into the right place to convert them. You want to try to keep it above the fold, which means when you first come to the site, you want to keep it visible so they don't have to scroll down too much. And at the local level, you want to think locally, so make it really compelling, and if you can, unique at the local level. That'll help a lot.
And this is a lot of people implement this strategy, and they say this is great. It really works. Only about 1% of the people on your site will convert on like request a quote or learn more, get more information. Once you start introducing top of the funnel call to action, like thought leadership, downloads, ebooks, stuff like that, you can start to get a ton more leads. Now, those leads are typically not ready to buy for another 1 or 2 months. So then the question becomes, well, what the heck do I do with these leads? I can't just give them to the franchisees. They're going to call them. They're not going to be ready to buy, and the franchisees never call them back. And so how do you warm these leads up and bring them down that funnel so that even though they became a lead when they were in the research phase of the purchase, they actually move down that funnel with you, and when they're ready to buy, they come back to you and buy. Now, the best way to do that is with something called lead nurturing. Lead nurturing is a way to automate emails, which is great because it doesn't take a lot of time, but to automate really targeted emails so that you can drive people through that funnel. And as you get more and more information about your customers, you can learn. For example, you might realize, oh wow, whenever somebody requests a quote, they usually buy, or they're 80% likely to buy within 2 weeks. Whereas if they just do a download something on our site, they're likely to buy over 3 months, right? And so then you can time emails to go out to them over those 3 months, so that maybe the first email is a download, but then a month later they get an offer for a free consultation or an assessment, and then a month after that they get some pricing information and maybe a request for an appointment, and then a month after that, finally, they go to the franchisee, and the franchisee can call them. But you can kind of nurture them over time automatically. And a mistake a lot of franchisors make is they break up their leads into two groups: potential customers and potential franchisees. And potential franchisees, they'll call from the corporate level. The potential customers, the leads for the franchisees, they'll just send them to the franchisees and ask the franchisees to call them, and whatever happens, happens. And the problem with that is that it becomes really hard to be targeted. So, for example, if I'm an individual franchisee, maybe I get 50 leads a month, right? And in a franchise with 100 locations, that means corporate is getting 5,000 leads a month, and each individual franchisee is getting 50 a month on average. if I'm getting 50 leads a month, let's say I'm a music school, right? I have some that are interested in guitar, some that are drums, some that are students, some that are students' parents. I can't really be so targeted, and so I end up sending everybody stock standard emails, or not emailing them at all because I just pick up the phone and call them. I can't really do a very effective job. But at the corporate level, we're getting thousands of leads, and what that means is that I can start to segment people much more effectively. So rather than just break people up into really simple stock groups, I can get really targeted and start to craft campaigns that are much more specific. So, for example, continuing with the music school example, rather than send everybody the same email campaigns, I can write one set of automated emails for maybe beginner drummers. And anybody who comes to our website and looks at the pages about learning how to drum and maybe fills out a form that says that they're a beginner drummer or whatever, they get that series of emails targeted at those people. And maybe it's only a series of 6 emails, but I write a different series for each unique niche. And as a franchisor, it's really worth my time because there are thousands of these. And I can do that. I can segment and customize things really well where the franchisee can't really do it. And I can warm up the leads for my franchisees. And then, of course, that should be done for potential franchisees or new development efforts as well. But the point you're trying to get to is that you're really becoming segmented and personalized. And this is not only about getting more leads to convert to customers. It's also about your existing customer base. So, for example, if I'm a music school, right, I don't want to just send the new potential drummer emails until he comes in for one lesson and then pass them along to the franchisee. Because, again, the big opportunity there is in repeat business. Right? If you can nurture him and get him to be really excited about drums and drumming twice a week, wanting a lesson twice a week instead of once a week, you're instantly doubling your revenue from that client. So the idea here is you want to get your customers, but the more customers you have in your database and the more leads you have in the database, the better you can personalize, right? The more personalized it is, the more value you're delivering them with targeted communication, right? By delivering that targeting communication, you're going to get better conversion rates and better, a higher percent of those people are eventually going to become customers or engage with you. And then that ultimately leads to more customers and more repeat customers. And that's ultimately the goal here, is being really, really targeted so that you can increase the efficiency of your entire funnel. It's something that a franchisor can do, not necessarily a franchisee.
Yeah, absolutely. So covered a lot of great information. We're getting towards the hour here, so we're going to wrap up. Hopefully this was valuable, again, both for the franchise sales development efforts, but also really for increasing those leads and traffic at the local level. Real quick about EmpowerKit. We basically have a platform that we've built specifically for managing franchise local sites. So a lot of things we've talked about, we've actually built into a software platform to quickly and easily create, launch those brand compliant sites, and then offer those dynamic controls where the franchisor can really have brand compliance, easy management, and at the local level they can have some flexibility to create some content very easily to drive traffic and increase leads locally. So that's really what our system's all about. And then, just kind of covered here, these are the real benefits of it. At the corporate level, easy setup process, the creation of sites is super simple, and then the real thing that's unique about our system is the limitations that you can put on franchisee control, and you can also do things like customizing the branding, and then we make it so that you can basically, some franchises do full adoption so that it's for all their franchises, some make it more of a premium offer. And then for franchisees, of course, they get a locally customized website, which a lot of franchisees are looking for these days. So it also helps as a sales tool when you're talking to prospects. Easy content management. That's a thing we focused on a lot. We touched on social media integration. That's something we've built into the platform. And then really at the end of the day, more visibility in search to help drive more leads. And that's what we've kind of partnered up with HubSpot on to help that as well.
Yep, and so just a quick note on HubSpot. We're an inbound marketing software company. We were founded in about 2006, and we make tools that make it really easy for people without any kind of technical background to their websites to actually, turn them from being a stock brochure to being something that actually actively generates leads for them. We wrote the book on inbound marketing, literally #1 bestseller on Amazon. It was written by our 2 co-founders. And our real value proposition is that we're easy and integrated. So you can go out and you can buy one tool for social media, one tool for blogging, a different tool for email, a different tool for analytics, a different tool for, lead nurturing. But the thing about HubSpot is we bring everything into one simple, easy-to-use platform. And now with this integration with EmpowerKit, it's really a great system so that, franchisors don't have to log into 50 different systems, the CRM and the email tool and the social media and the analytics. They have it all in one, simple to manage, really drag and drop, easy to use place. We recently raised our last round of financing from Google Ventures, Sequoia Capital, Salesforce.com. It was obviously a very strategic investment. Our partnership with Google allows us to, really integrate into the keywords and the SEO really effectively. Obviously, by partnering with Salesforce, we have, focused our tools on not just helping people with marketing, but also close on sales more effectively and tying that sales and marketing effort together. We just got recognized as the second fastest growing software company in the world, 33rd fastest growing company in the country. And most importantly, our ROI is just phenomenal. Our average customer sees a 420% increase in leads within 5 months of joining HubSpot. So we have a really standard formula, and I think that's why one of the reasons we're the only software company that Google Ventures, the only marketing company that Google Ventures ever invested in, and it's because we're helping people not just get a bunch of traffic or do ads or anything like that, but actually really focusing on leads and growing their business. Now with the HubSpot and EmpowerKit partnership, it's really the complete package for franchise systems. It's the tools to help you do that marketing and generate those leads, grow the top of the funnel, combined with the ability to have local websites and have that control for franchisees. So we're really, really excited about this partnership. Now, as part of it, aside from all the software and tools and the training and consulting that comes along with it, because we teach franchisors and franchisees how to do all of this stuff, we have some really, really great one-on-one consulting. We also offer franchise systems some really, really great resources. So we found that a lot of franchisors don't have the time or the ability to train their franchisees and teach them what they should be doing. And so we have a ton of great content that we can customize for franchise systems so that they can leverage our content to teach their franchisees how to be effective online, what the guidelines are, how to build local engagements in social media. And so it's nice because it takes a lot of work off the table for franchisors, and they can go out and worry about scaling their business and attracting more franchisees as opposed to just, continuing to invest in training franchisees, which can be a huge time suck. And that's something that we do for free for a lot of our franchisees, which is great. Finally, as part of the webinar, anybody who's interested, we're offering a free franchise online marketing assessment. You can go to HubSpot.com/franchise-online-marketing-assessment. So it's the website right here, at the top of the page in orange. You can sign up on that website for a free consultation. It's about anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes with one of our consultants. They'll give you an in-depth analysis of your website with a competitive report, tell you how you stack up against your competitors, and give you some really, really specific feedback on what you can be doing to generate more leads and to optimize your franchise marketing efforts online, whether it's at the local level, on the development side of things, or on the corporate website. So really, really valuable assessment. Of course, if you want to sign up for a demo of either of the products, you can just head over to HubSpot.com or EmpowerKit.com. This will be a nice kind of easy way to understand where your biggest challenges are and where you should be spending your time, though. So thank you again to everyone for joining the call. I wanted to leave some time for questions, but it looks like we much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And yep, my contact information's there. If anyone has questions, very accessible. Feel free to reach out, and hope to be working with some of you folks soon.